concepts are being placed right now. So this United States Corporation Company has the major part of the service contracts for the United States Republic. All right? And these are your two entities where it says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, right, for our posterity. All right, so that's the two parties. All right? But understand that the Societas Republica et Americanos becomes United States of America in English. It is the conversion of the Moorish government, the imperial divan, into bringing the European sons into government. This is why all persons in power anywhere in Western Hemisphere, particularly in North America, secretly through their rituals wear Moorish fez, although they dress them in jewels. And all of their lodges will have Moorish names. And all of their lodges will be given feminine names, back to the matriarch. However, they'll pin their tassel down because they're not the sovereign. The sovereign, the heirs are asleep. That's y'all. Understand? Now, with the Unam Sanctum Policy, it is the desire of the Jesuit order and those minions who help them to keep you, the heirs, unaware of this, because it changes the whole paradigm. Once you change your thought pattern, the energy around you changes. It has to come from you. It's not going to come from someone else. Understand this. When you get the idea that some program is going to come and rescue you, it ain't going to happen. It has to come absolutely from you. Are we clear? All right, now. So this United States, we're going to jump ahead because I'm going to give you a synopsis before we get into this. This United States, we're jumping up to Lincoln. Keep this in mind so you can understand the scenario, to understand why Raleigh did what he did, why the temples were structured the way they were structured, why certain principles were set forth in the charter, and then you'll understand the shells. We're talking right now the shell corporations. Are we clear? All right, now, Lincoln, according to fatwa, Moorish law, because the barristers were operative deputy knights for the Pope to Rome under the Secret Treaty of Verona to overthrow the republics. Are we clear? Therefore, they could not hold an office in the United States. That's the original Article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections that you don't see in history books, but scholars have, and Masons have, and Skull and Bones has, Illuminati has, Ku Klux Klan has, everybody got it but our people. They get beliefs and programs to keep them busy while they get raped. And it's their Negro leader job to keep them passive while they get screwed, while they get paid in the background, pretending they don't know this history. That's why they're all comfortable, got nice parishes, nice cars, $3,000 suits. You know, and anybody that knows the Secret Treaty of Verona knows that their oath is to the Pope of Rome, not to Jesus. That's why we gave you that, so that you don't start believing what you keep seeing out here that really ain't what you think it is. It's a false matrix. Now, keep these principles in mind. Fatwa, a member of the Barristers Association cannot hold an office of trust in the United States on any level. That's the law of the land. Of course you know that ain't what's going on. So let's explain why and how. All right? Now, we're jumping up to Lincoln. The Congress adjourned sine die of May 10th, 1861. Write that down, because this is for you to do your research, so your concepts will be right. We're not going to go through all this tonight. We're going to give you points so that we're not talking over your head. Because as you know, not enough of you raised your hand when we asked the question from the beginning. So that means if those questions aren't asked, that means she's lost. For those of you who don't want your estate, at least have some decency to make sure she gets hers. Because the truth don't have to come from mouth of babes anyway, because most of the adults are hypocrites and sellouts. Go ahead, sis. Give her a mic. Give her a mic. Anybody ask questions, we're going to go on the mic so that you know.
I didn't hear the date.
May 10th, 1861, the Congress adjourned sine die. Now, we got to work with this board because this stuff really doesn't want to come off. Set and ride, brothers and sisters. Dr. Nayela? So, keep that in mind. The Congress adjourned sine die. All right? 1861. Now, how many of you know that? Didn't know that? All right. Didn't know that?
I knew that. But you said how many didn't?
You didn't know that?
I just had a question. I just watched a movie called The Conquest of 1892 or 42, I think it was. Was those the Mike. I know one of those boxes, right? You just zoom all around the world and stuff. And I have to come up on a movie called Conquest 18. Can't remember the date. I think it was 1842 or 1892.
Yeah.
I think it was 1842.
What would the historical points be?
The point was it was showing how how Columbus claimed he discovered America when America Vespucci had already claimed those lands, but it was already indigenous people already there on those islands.
All right, that's the reconstructed history. The true history is that it's not that the land was occupied. The lands were operating. The Moorish Empire fell, and they were in the process of dividing it amongst the Constantinian nations. Remember, as soon as you go into the world, let's look at this. I want to show you how the misinformation works. Scholars will tell you bluntly, and anthropologists will tell you bluntly, that due to the actions of the Jesuit order, when the Moors were run out of Andalusia, etc., since then that the world has been set back over 500 years. That means we should be over 500 years advanced. That's how much technology that the Jesuit order burned, destroyed, covered up, and etc. And what they have not destroyed is what's metered out piece by piece in degrees in what you call masonry. That's why there's a threat of death for people to reveal it, because they could not rule lest the people believed in them. If you remember, the masses don't deal with facts, they deal with beliefs. But they've been trained to think that beliefs are equal to facts. This is what keeps them under control. That's what militarily called schism. Write that down. Schism, schismata, dogma, dogmata. That's the major instruments that are used to keep the masses under control. And then the minions and familiars are used to orate skillfully using symboliography, whether in jurisprudence or in general linguistics, for control purposes, and that's what you will find in communities of Asiatics who are branded Negro, Black, or Colored. Immediately, a sociologist listens to the language and already know they're under mind control. They don't know because they think it's Negro fad stuff. But an engineer already recognizes the tools because they interjected them. You know, and this is what they do every once in a while, is they'll run tests, even in movies, to see whether you're evolving or whether you're coming out from under the spells. And then they'll inject what is necessary to suppress you, including going in and killing off a few, young women and men and stealing their organs to intimidate the people to suppress them back again. And then they'll get their Negro minions out. This is how you can tell the COINTELPRO operates. As soon as they do a sacrifice, right? Say, for instance, if they need say, a heart or some lungs at one of the hospitals, major hospitals on Broad Street in Philly. For some wealthy Europeans, they'll watch some young male or young woman, and then the gangs of New York will be sent out there with a tag, and that person will be tagged, and sooner or later they'll approach them, say they have guns, say they have whatever, and kill them right on the street, and immediately will take their workers. They've been doing it all the time. Now, the people who don't understand how things work, they're trained by their leader guys to start talking colors and racism and stuff that keeps them busy. It's not really what's happening. It's Unam Sanctum. You understand what I'm saying? It's Unam Sanctum. And of course, they're going to start marching and praying all around. That keeps them busy. Keeps them out of here, the rulers. And then they don't have standing in law because 90% of them got that European's name, their state property, and don't even know it. That's why they put, state property clues in the community. They swear that's cool. They're telling the absolute truth. That's, because they are state property. Unam Sanctum. Now, and this is why it's important for you to know this history, because you can think this out yourself once you know these keys. Like Charlie said, if I could get you all thinking again, you save yourself. This stuff is not complex. Your concepts are all wrong, which he told you. But I'm showing you how and why your concepts are wrong, are clear. Now, 1861, the Congress adjourned sine die. Keep this in mind so your concepts will be correct. This was really a coup d'etat. That was really a coup d'etat. Now, keep this in mind. These operations are under the Secret Treaty of Verona. That's the support agreement with the Constantinian nations to carry out the Spanish Inquisition. And all politicians know. This is their guide manual. Are we clear? So when you're thinking that these people are operating by mere opinion, that they don't like you for the moment, and you got to convince them to like you, they're operating off of policy. That's why they have Rotarian clubs and stuff, and Lions clubs, little stuff where they send their children early, and then our children will go to those things because they learn their real history. That's why even when they're dumb, not very bright, you have some Europeans that may be as bright as a 15-watt bulb, and he could run a company, and half the Asiatics in there got college degrees and can't get past a certain level of compensation. And even then, they're going to be taxed out of it anyway. That's how that works. If you really understand it, don't start thinking colors. That game, that race game, don't even feed in that. That's a diversion. It's Unam Sanctum. If they can get you to start arguing colors and the race game, they know you're under the spell. I know the temptation's there, don't fall for it. It's Unam Sanctum. All right? This is what has occurred. After the fall of the Emirate in Granada, they declared all the descendants of Moors dead at sea until they could prove otherwise. That's the basis upon the admiralty or the pirate law being brought onto the land. The key is for them to keep that a secret while pretending to be legitimate government. That's what is called the shadow government. Are we clear? Now, the coup d'etat, in actuality, the Congress for the United States, this one right here, adjourned sine die, that means they quit, but they kept the seats. As if the government was not overthrown. It was actually a coup d'etat. And they set up for themselves a secret oligarchy. Write that down. Oligarchy. That's with an O. That's what's in operation to this day. This is why the politicians do one thing and say another, and all their legislation is always for the corporate good, not for yours, and you always pay the bills. But I'm going to explain to you how and why the bills are sent to you. Now, keep in mind, from Congress, the German Synod was really, this is the delusion, although it actually took place, it's a diversion. This is really what took place. But they will never say this in history. They will only say this. All right? Now, right after this, you got to keep this in mind, that Lincoln was a member of the Bar Association, could not hold office. Are we clear? So they ran him for president under this United States in France to do the service contracts for the organic United States Republic, which is the political order on the land between Moors and Constantinians, listed as Muslims and Christians in history book. Because remember, the Europeans hide behind Christianity, they're really Constantinians. All right? All right, now, keep that in mind. So now, this is the beginning in North America where the praetor, or the one holding executive office, is wearing two hats. You got that? Keep this in mind, because it's important for you to understand what's happening right now. If you don't get this, say so. Get it clear, so that when you're coming here to the House of Reawakening Minds, that when we give you certain information, you receive it correctly. Are we clear? All right. Now, so he starts operating the contracts, which is what is called the 19 enumerated powers in contract. Now, because he could not run for that president, the republic, although his great-grandfather was a Moor, he still could not run for a republic because he was a barrister. And this also spurred him to do a couple of law cases making the distinction between Moors, blacks, and Negroes being the same blood, different status. That also got him in trouble because that's against Unam Sanctum Policy. See, because these people are supposed to operate under the brands. Because if they're in their proper person, they can't crib the estate. Because the national wills and treaties, national constitutions and treaties are identical to family wills. They're just for nation states. And they're international in scope. And so, baby girl, she doesn't know, and we're talking truth, this is not scenario, she's heir to the world's largest estate. And then most of our people are poor. But they're the heirs to the world's largest estate. They're the wealthiest people on the planet. And to this very day, except for a handful who've been taken to the mountaintop and shown the secrets, know that truth. Although they have a movie called National Treasure, and they'll tell you that. But they know that most of you, unless you're Masons, don't get it. And yet they're telling you the truth. And people think the gold of Egypt is over there. It's right here in Philadelphia, from Boston to here, in chambers that you can't even see the ends of. You understand what I'm saying to you? Now, and that's fact. That's not untrue. The deal is you're not supposed to ever get it. Now, the other deal is they're trying to kill you off before you wake up in mass and change the paradigm. Do you understand? All right, now, so that's a coup d'etat. They created an oligarchy, and state kept the seats that they actually abandoned to give the appearance that the shop hadn't closed. Are we clear? Lincoln, recognizing that they were using him to overthrow the republic. Keep that in mind, he was elected under this United States. But he's acting as the executive contractor to service this United States, but also on the sea. That's another reason why John Wilkes Booth, that was another reason why they murdered him, because their position was that he prosecuted that for not actually being president. We're talking real history. We're not talking about what they teach you in school. So if you understand these things, the rest of it you can put together yourself. A lot of things you thought you didn't know, you'd be surprised what you do know. It's just that once you pull the blinders off, you know, how do you say, once you correct one of the dominoes, the others that fell kind of get back up like type thing. Yeah, I wasn't supposed to fall. You know, it's kind of that. Anyway, so when Lincoln recognized that they were using him to overthrow the Republic, he bankrupted that United States and France. Are we clear? Not this United States, the Republic, which they're telling you in history. No, he did not. The greenbacks that he so-called printed was to undermine the Secret Treaty of Verona, controlled by the bench of the Jesuit order called the Bankers in the Secret Treaty of Verona of London District, which also tagged him for death. This is aside from him winning that case for Sinoque, that a member of Opus Dei that he won that case for. Now, so keep this in mind. So upon recognizing that they were using him to undermine the Republic, he bankrupted this United States. Now they're really pissed. So now that the United States and France is bankrupt, now they're sort of like, their wings have been clipped. Their wings have been clipped. So between 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, the plot goes on to get rid of Lincoln. He knows it, so he does the Emancipation Proclamation. This is where you get the 3630 parallel, where they were setting up, you understand, Lincoln was setting up to give minimally 40 acres and a mule, plus finances and all other structural accoutrement supports to every heir of the estate, which did not include Europeans. It was the people of land, us, branded as Negroes, black, and cult. That's not who they are. That's the tag. Are we clear? All right. Now, they weren't having it. That's why they modified it 3 times before it was released in '65. They murdered Lincoln, and they modified the Emancipation Proclamation, and they did a manumission, not a liberation. And a manumission, whereas all of the estates of all the descendant Moors were converted into the hands of the coup d'etat operators of the oligarchy, who are now pretending to be the Congress, and then delivered to the Lords of London in banknotes. That's the beginning of UST bonds. That's on the stock market today. Give him Mike.
The land grants that started.
That's for Europeans.
Yeah, because you know they start giving out tons of land grants, millions of acres and acres.
Consider William Party, Heirs, Greeley, the Europeans countering their obligation to take our land, to convert the allodial titles, the Aboriginal, write this down, Aboriginal titles, allodial titles, which were later registered in 1913 after another shell was broken into mortgages and deeds, which did not exist at Morocco prior to 1913.
So one of the biggest ones I'm talking about is the land grant for the railroad.
Yeah, that's the game.
New York, Albany.
All right, now,
all the way down.
keep that in mind and keep in the gangs of New York. Foot soldiers to steal our land.
Where did that start taking place?
That's in early 1800s. I forget the date, so I'm not going to say it. But keep this in mind. Look up gangs of New York. The gangs of New York, to enforce the contracts to steal the land, and starting in New York, etc., and spread out, is now called the police departments. That's where their attitude really comes from, because the people think they're law officers, and they're really a secret gang of New York whose mission is to destroy our families and to destabilize our families. This is why they'll murder families in front of children. People's concepts about what real history is incorrect. If they know who these people really are, they change their frame of thinking. they will do differently. And when they start doing differently, things will change. No one's going to change this but you. Go ahead.
So when they tell our people they need to save their pennies and start a low mile store, this is not how they started. They started with big amounts of land, using animals, started farms,
Yes.
all types of business, and then they look at you and say, look at him, he's on entitlements, he's on welfare, and he should pick himself up by his bootstraps. And they never burned the midnight oil. They never were that smart.
Exactly. They stole your estates. Now, keep this in mind. This is very important, you all. Keep this in mind. It's very important. Write this down because we got a collage war here going on. So it refuses to be really. I think it belongs to the union, local union. Yeah. Anyway, so the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, which they will reconstruct in history and tell you is the Freedmen's Bureau. That's the official name. Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. That's the proper name. So when you're looking at these grants and stuff like that, you see them trying to undermine the 3630 parallel where the land was supposed to be returned to the heirs. And we're supposed to fix this thing. All right? Meanwhile, understand government is really broken, but the masses don't know this. They're just looking at these little skirmishes going on, civil war and everything. You don't understand that whole foundation is to undermine the republic. Give them the mic, you all.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Good. I have a question. The assassination with Lincoln, Charles Sumner's, Horace Greeley, and Thaddeus Stevens.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can bring a little more clarity to me for that? The reason why I'm asking because I actually go to Thaddeus Stevens and Lancaster territory.
Yeah, well, don't look at, because the point of exposing that is not so much to do the detail, is to do the aggregate history so that people don't get confused. The motive of operation, modus operandi. Like we can get into the inner workings of the parties and it's not just a point of interest, you're the heir. And you don't think like heirs. Are we clear? And they don't want you to think like heirs. Neither do your black leaders want you to think like heirs, because they got a skull and bones agreement secretly under the Treaty of Verona. You know, and they got these people thinking, oh, we don't pray to the lords. They're talking about the lords of London, and these people who don't know history think they're talking about Jesus in the sky and stuff. They really do. We're talking about adults really believe that. And actually think that Jesus got a bank account, Chase Manhattan, and Reverend Jones is giving Jesus his hand. They really, really believe that. And they promote that to their babies too, destroying their lives too. Anyway, back to the point. Lincoln bankrupted this United States. Got it? Vendetta, Civil War, the expansion of it, and the Reconstruction period is to rewrite the history. Hide the coup d'etat. That one was bankrupted, so they created another shell United States. Are we clear? This one's organic. This is the service contract in France that was bankrupted by Lincoln. Same name, different structure, same name. All right? This is Morocco under occupation and in treaty agreement. Legitimate. Started out legitimate, was bankrupted because of bankers trying to use this platform to undermine this republic, and Lincoln bankrupted it. Got that? So they set up a United States and try to convert this debt of this bankruptcy onto this United States, the organic. That's what the Pope was talking about when he said the criminal act that took place 150 years ago. They talking about the 14th Amendment, corporation persons given the quality of person, corporations, given the quality of persons to convert the estate of the heirs to say that the debt of this corporate entity in France is actually their debt. This is where they developed the term that you hear, the national debt. And it was they converted the debt on the nationals of the land. But it's really a private corporate debt in France. A dead corporation that Lincoln killed. You got this? All right, now. So they had to create another United States. So this goes on up until roughly 1910, 1912. 1913, then Noble Ali came along and set up Old Canaanite Temple for the correction and enforcement of the Constitution contract, which is a national will for the restoration of the estate of the true heirs, i.e. the Treaty, Constitution, Article 6. But he has to train the heirs who don't know government, they don't know their bloodline, they don't know the history of the human family, they think human beings are crayons, they think they're monkeys, they don't know that Negro means monkey, and they promote it proudly. They think colored means honorable Afrocentricity, and it means artificial person. You know, because they don't read law books, but they can't read anyway. You know, so we're dealing with the John D. Rockefeller operations. And then their Negro marching leaders are interjected, claiming to love Jesusness, and they really have an oath with the popes of Rome, that Secret Treaty of Verona, Article 3. Write that down so you can do research yourself. Secret Treaty of Verona, Article 3. That's the true secret oath of all your clergy. All your clergy. That's why they, without conscience, always ask people buying airplanes and stuff. Jesus needs to see me next week. I got to fly to Arizona. And the assistant man got airplane and stuff. And people get it for them too. Sell their houses that should be going to their children and all that kind of stuff. They're doing it for the Lord of London. They are. I mean, it's a shame because people, scholars know this stuff. This is not, this stuff ain't even that deeply buried. They just know these people are scared of books now. You know, where that used to be part of our culture, now they're scared of books. Just go back to the second page, it's the devil. They start that stuff. Romans are safe. Show them anything they don't understand. It's the devil. That's where they go. Romans is safe. And this is what they're counting on. All right. So this is the truth. And it works. I mean, why fix what ain't broken? Now, so this was in operation, so keep this in mind. So 1913, Noble Ali set up the Old Canaanite Temple, write that down, for the restoration of the estate to the proper heirs who were not in their proper person. So you can understand the difficulty he had to restructure or to set this temple up, this Old Canaanite Temple, to teach the people that's totally disconnected from their consciousness, bloodline, and anything. Thinking human beings are crayons and everything but true. Thinking they're Christians. Oh, it's interesting. Anyway, what's up, Titter? I see you, girl. Anybody, all professors of all universities know this information. All heads of all industry know this information. All members of Knights Templar know this information. All members of Kaitos, Ku Klux Klan, the Grand Dragons know this information. All your high degree reverends know this information. Imams, all PhDs, all the monastics. The only ones that don't know it, it's easy to say. All you go, Negro, black, colored, West Indians, Latinos, and whatever they are this week, they're usually the ones that don't know. and they're the heirs to the world's largest estate. It's easy to say, all you go, Negro, black, colored, West Indians, Latinos, and whatever they are this week, is being maintained at all costs. And what is known as the Unam Sanctum Policy transfers today in what they call the Wolfowitz, I think it's Wolfowitz policy, or the Wolfowitz doctrine. And this is where they will preemptively go murdering people, killing women and children around the world to make sure that no nation ever competes with the United States corporation company that they're misrepresenting as a country. Are we clear? Are we clear? United States corporation company bankrupted that they're pretending is United States Republic, Republica e Alamodocanis, which is under occupation. And they converted their debt to the heirs who don't know that that's the politics. Are we clear? In a nutshell, the great Masonic secret. That's it. 13, Noble Raleigh set up the Old Canaanite Temple for the restoration of the estate and the enforcement of the Constitution. And you will find inferences of that, including the 14th Amendment, 14th, 15th Amendment fraud, in what's called the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. Write that down so you can do your research. So, the countermeasure, this is a countermeasure, so it's another shell. So when Raleigh established the Old Canaanite Temple in 1913, Woodrow Wilson met with the Jesuit order, representatives from the Jesuit order, banks, London bankers under the Secret Treaty of Verona off Jekyll Island, Georgia, 1913, and set up the Federal Reserve and the Inquisition Revenue Services, restyled as Internal Revenue Services. That's the next United States shell. It's really a United States shell. Now, they register it in Puerto Rico and Guam. It's not on the land. Are we clear? All right, you got that? All right, now, so this goes on, and during the run of Noble Raleigh, he's a problem because people are learning, but they're still half asleep. And then it's infiltrated by Calvin Coolidge and J. Edgar Hoover under COINTELPRO operations. Write down COINTELPRO operations. And this is what that area is called the Great Sellout. And so between 1930 and 1934, with the payoff and the infiltration, you've got your major so-called black organizations spring up. That's going to sellout. Get it, Brother Mike.